Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we're diving into something absolutely fascinating. We spend so much of our lives categorizing ourselves and the people around us into these neat little boxes, like, oh, I'm an introvert, or they're totally an extrovert. But we kind of treat these labels like they're just simple personality quirks, right? Like mere social preferences. Well, what if I told you it actually goes way, way deeper than that? Today, we're looking at the hard science. We're going to explore how our biology, literally the wiring of our nervous systems, is what actually dictates our personality types, not just what we happen to prefer on a given day. I mean, just take a second and think about your own everyday life. When it's been a really long week, what's your ultimate release? Why do some of us instinctively crave the thumping bass of a packed, energetic room just to feel alive, while others are, hiding in the bathroom at that exact same party just to feel normal again? You've probably noticed this dynamic in your friends, your family, or even yourself.
Section 1. The biological stimulation divide. It's not just a preference.
So these differing social behaviors, right? The craving for the crowd versus the craving for the couch. They aren't merely personal choices that we consciously make. They're actually deeply biologically wired into who we are. It really comes down to neurophysiology and biogenic nature. I know that sounds like a bit of a mouthful, but it simply refers to the underlying biological and nervous system processes that dictate a person's innate needs, their stimulation requirements, and their reactions to the world. According to the research, the core difference in what extroverts and introverts require from their environments is entirely rooted right here in this biogenic nature. It's a physiological reality.
Extroverts seeking high energy, reaching optimal engagement.
Okay, so because their internal baseline for stimulation is actually quite low, extroverts have to actively seek out high-energy environments. They literally require external input. Think loud noises, bustling social events, parties, just to function properly. So they aren't just being loud for the sake of it, guys. Their nervous systems are actively hunting for stimulation.
In fact, the research states that extroverts are characterized by a need for stimulation just to function effectively. It's all about reaching an optimal level of engagement. And that phrase right there, that is the absolute biological driver for an extrovert's behavior. They are continually trying to turn up their internal dial to hit that perfect sweet spot where their brain finally feels fully awake, engaged, and ready to tackle the day.
But if we flip the script and look at the other side of the coin, the biology flips entirely too. While extroverts have a distinct need for stimulation, introverts have the exact opposite requirement, the biological need to reduce stimulation. And this brings us to the real core focus of our explainer today. We really want to dig into exactly why introverts actively avoid high stimulation environments.
Section 2. Introverts, the overload effect. Why quiet spaces matter. See, for an introvert, their nervous system's baseline is already running hot. They don't need a loud party to wake their brain up. They're pretty much already at maximum alert. And this is exactly why they avoid high stimulation. Removing external input, like stepping away from the noise, the crushing crowds, and the bright lights, is actually the biological key to improving their performance and their overall well-being. Which perfectly explains their behavioral patterns, right? Introverts seek out quiet spaces and actively avoid intense environments for a very specific physiological reason. They are highly prone to overloading. If the environment around them is just too intense, it piles right on top of their already high internal stimulation. And this overloading isn't just a feeling of being, annoyed. It's a genuine neurophysiological response where the brain is receiving way too much input to process comfortably. That's exactly why they have to step away.
Section 3. The ultimate caffeine test. A real-world biological stress test.
To really cement this concept, let's look at something most of us interact with every single day. Your morning cup of coffee. The research shows that extroverts often heavily rely on external stimulants like caffeine to help them perform, particularly in the morning. And why is that? Well, because when they wake up, their biological stimulation is just too low. That shot of espresso acts as a tool, an external boost that successfully spikes their stimulation right up to that optimal level we talked about earlier. It bridges the gap. But here is where it gets so fascinating. The exact same chemical stimulus creates totally different biological reactions. For extroverts, caffeine benefits morning performance and engagement. But for introverts, that same cup of coffee pushes their internal stimulation levels way too high, causing hindrance. Remember, the introvert is already biologically operating at a higher baseline. When you add a powerful chemical stimulant like caffeine on top of that, it acts as a catalyst for that exact overloading effect we just discussed.
And the data on this is incredibly specific.
The source notes that caffeine can hinder introverts, especially during speeded or quantitative tasks. So if an introvert is trying to do fast-paced work or number-heavy problem-solving, that excess stimulation totally backfires. Asking a highly caffeinated introvert to do speed math is basically a recipe for a short circuit, simply because their nervous system is trying to process way too much at once. It scatters their focus instead of sharpening it.
And this physiological sensitivity goes even further. The research highlights a really extreme example of this biological divide. For introverts, consuming coffee late in the day can severely disrupt their sleep. Because their biogenic nature doesn't naturally clear out that high stimulation as easily, a simple afternoon cup of coffee can completely derail an introvert's resting phase. It literally leaves their nervous system humming long after the extrovert has easily drifted off to sleep.
It really changes how you look at the people around you, doesn't it? Our social habits and our daily routines are just profoundly shaped by the invisible wiring of our nervous systems. So, I'm going to leave you with this thought. Next time you reach for that afternoon coffee, or you're deciding whether to attend that loud, crowded event, ask yourself, are you feeling your brain to reach optimal engagement, or are you biologically overloading it? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.